Hello. If you're interested in incredibly weird, glitchy, strange, starved, broken, interesting, crusty basses, crackles, and textures, this may be of interest to you. It's not a drum machine. Here I have a kick drum from the Deluge, and every other sound is Scrooge. So friend, what the devil is going on here, you ask? Well, the Scrooge is kind of a drum machine, but I think it would be a misnomer to call it a drum machine, because to say drum machine implies things like the 808 and 909, things that have one particular sound and can stand on their own as a complete kind of percussion backline. And I don't think it's fair to say that's what the Scrooge is. The Scrooge is more of a sort of freaky groove box that specializes in starved, freakish noise, texture-y squawks and chirps and other percussive sounds, things that, when combined with traditional 808s, 909s and other drum machines, then become the sort of interesting textural cruft, the weird glitchy funk and groove that knits together very interestingly with traditional things. So the Scrooge has an 8-track, 64-step sequencer with lots of nice features like micro timing, the ability to change patterns, and electron-style parameter locking, which we'll get into. And these sequencer tracks can in part control these 5 voices that are on board. Now the voices are generated in an extremely weird way. They use CMOS chips and analog circuitry attached to them, and the sequencer of Scrooge injects voltages into those circuits. And when it does that, the CMOS chips spark to life in weird ways, make sounds, and then go away. But the shape of the voltages that bring those CMOS chips to life affects the tone they make. And what the sequencer is doing is not just generating gates, but generating shaped gates that swell or fall away, that have other qualities like the ability to erode them or to have ratcheting, to have longer and shorter ones, all of which will activate these chips that are in the 5 voices in different ways and make them do different things. In fact, there is a really crazy thing, which is that you can use the Scrooge unpowered and feed voltages into the poke inputs. If you send voltages in there, you will hear the voices come to life passively. So you can use this even when it's not plugged in. And by the way, it is also a Eurorack module. It will come out of here and be Eurorack powered, and it has USB power with a USB-C cable. So we have these 5 voices. They use these weird chips. They come to life when the sequencer pokes them with electricity that you shape in different ways with the sequencer. Now each of the 5 voices are different. They're tuned in different ways to produce different sorts of sounds. Each of these voices have 2 tone controls, which are helpfully labelled with Celtic knot symbols, which I think tells you everything you need to know about what you're supposed to know about these. In my experience, they change weird aspects of the voices that I can't quite explain. It's sort of sounding a bit like biasing when you change biasing on like tape simulations and they starve and go strange. But just know that by adjusting these, you get different effects. By changing the voltages that are coming to them with the sequencer, you get different effects. But then there are actually 8 tracks on the sequencer. 5 for the initial voices, One called EXT, which we can use as a clock, but we can also send voltages out to other things with. But there's also a Mod X and Mod Y. That's 2 additional sequencer tracks. And there is some really nice routing on this where you can click these switches and send those voltages into any of the channels on demand. And that lets you further shape and mess with them in real time. There is also a switch here called A and B on each channel. And what that is a routing switch. You have 2 outputs, A and B here, which I've got separately going into a Mackie mixer. And on A, I've got a reverb and delay, and on B, I have just nothing at all. And what this lets us do is mute sounds. If we have the switch in the middle, the sound is muted. If you flick it to the right, it will come out of A. If you flick it to the left, it will come out of B. It means you could have like different processing chains and quickly, in real time, mash the thing through them. It also means you could do things like cue sounds. For example, if you had headphones, if you made it so you could hear channel B through your headphones, perhaps you could then cue it. But also it lets you do kind of dubby things where you can smash it through a bunch of effects and then back to normality. It's just a really interesting feature that I've not really seen elsewhere. There are individual voice outputs here, so you can process each voice completely independently, and there is also clock sync, and there is MIDI sync as well. Now the sequencer is quite deep, and I'm not going to go into a full, beans explanation of everything it can do, except to say that you can chain patterns, you can have up to 64 steps, you can have different lengths, you can do micro timing, you can copy and paste steps, and you can do parameter locking. And more that I've neglected to mention. So let's make a pattern and then we'll play around with the voices and just explore the general Scroogey things that you can do. So underneath this 16 step buttons on the bottom are legending. These are like shift functions which allow you to go into various pages and perform various functions on the Scrooge. The leftmost button here, select, will let you adjust the top row, what you see in white, if you can see the screen. And the middle one, funk, lets you adjust the bottom row in black, if you can see the screen. So left is the top row of things, the middle button is the bottom row of things. If I run the beast, run the beast, you push run. And then I'm going to hit the left button and I want to adjust voice 1. This is actually what is winking already. Here I can see that I've got the sequencer tracks for the 5 voices, the EXT, the Mod X, and the Mod Y. So I'm now looking at voice 1, and if I just play some steps, then voice 1 lights up, little LED comes to life. And if I adjust the tone controls, we get some basic adjustments, but we have these switches X and Y. I can see that X is winking at me, and if I turn that on, then what it's doing is it's sending some voltage from this other sequencer lane, X, into the voice. If I put some steps on, then when there are steps on, it's going to affect the voice at that point. But what is so important here is not just whether a step is on, but how a step is shaped. You remember us talking about the electron style parameter locking thing. So what we're going to do, we've got these 3 knobs, and these 3 knobs control 6 functions. The first one is gate length. And what I did was I held a step, and while I am holding a step, by turning the knob, I am baking information into that step. So gate length is 1. This one here controls how the note is shaped. Does it fall away here? Is it straight in the middle, or does it rise? And because this is baked into it on a per step basis, you can craft these like rising and falling things. And then this first knob, or bottom left knob, is the height of the step. That's how much voltage is being injected. And that's going to sound different Here I need to have it about in the middle to start affecting it all. We're getting clicks out of it. But I can build in softness, soft steps, ghost steps. And then I could hold the left shift, go to Mod X, and I could also bake in some stuff to Mod X too. Oh, that's cool. Oh, wow. That's nuts. That's super cool. So this Mod X is another lane of voltage. And by having that switch to the left, I'm sending that voltage into this. It's adding the two things together and it's making the CMOS chip freak out. Cool, isn't it? Now, these three knobs have three other functions, and you access them by pushing Shift. Now, I have ratcheting, erosion, where I can make the gate sort of erode and sound weird, or probability per step. Off, they were gate length, shape, and height. Let's go back to this step. I added ratcheting to this first step. I can dial down the probability of this step. Ooh. And erode. And erosion sounds weird. Almost can sound like FME, according to the manual. Actually, it has a quite like percussive, sort of snarey feel. And so by using that A and B switch, I can dub that sound into my other channel, as well as mute. That's one voice. Let's build this up further. Let's go to voice 2. All right, so if I turn this on, whoop, voice 2. Let's increase the gate length. Change the shape, make it rise. Let's erode it. Oh, weird. That's where we've ended up. I've like shredded it and eroded it by eroding Y. Let's go back to the step 2. Oh, cool. Okay, let's go to step 3. Yeah. Oh, interesting. I just flicked on X for this third step. Let's just mute these so you can hear it. And now let's adjust the probability of that note. Cool. And then voice 5 is supposed to be a kind of bass thing. Huh. I really enjoy the kind of, it's got a quirky kind of Wazzo, Mr. Wazzo kind of vibe. This is voice 5. Oh yeah. By adding ratcheting, we can kind of tune it. And then we get into this fact that combine this then with other traditional elements. Can we just get into this like interesting halfway house? Thing that we can do is feed voltages into the X and Y. So if I take the music thing, workshop system here, which I happen to have, not out yet, get me, then the voltages coming in here will do all kinds of weird things. Things are ripe for a little bit of yeah. Here's a sort of prototypical weird freaky Scrooge groove, which if I then combine with an 808 off the Deluge, ugh. Huh. Now there are some really interesting and significant things that we can do to kind of interact and perform with sequences once they've been created. And they are an ability to control all. If I push the middle switch in, what it's going to do is let me temporarily override all the steps with the contents of the 3 knobs here. So I'm effectively making every step's height different now. I'm affecting every step's slope. Gate length. Let's turn off the X and Y. Whoa. And then if you hold shift at the same time, then you access the 3 additional functions that you can do: the erosion, the ratcheting, and the probability. Make them all ratchet, make them all erode, and reduce their probability. We've gone really fruity here. Woo. Okay, there's another really cool feature that I do want to highlight in the sequencer, which is run pattern. If I hold this down and go like that and confirm, it will create a random pattern for us, completely freak out and do an algorithmically generate. Let's do that again. Ooh, that's nice. Oh. Yeah, I like that. very cool. That's very cool. You can save those patterns to memory, by the way, if you like, but it's non-destructive if you don't. You can use this as a kind of performance effect. And then of course we can go in and we can shape what it's done, take it as some inspiration but not the definitive article, make it more our own thing. What is that when it's at home? Whoa. Whoa. Yeah. Ooh. Yeah. Controlling all. Let's. Like little fruity Game Boy characters. Whoa. Give it a poke and see what you think. Thanks very much. That's the Scrooge. Cheers. Bye.